Hi, I'm Jim Clark. We're talking with Walsh Wall of Famer Judge Rosie Hall. And Rosie, first, congratulations on your Wall of Fame induction.
Thank you.
I like to call you a trailblazer. It goes back to the 70s in female athletics here. We were on our first teams ever, first club volleyball to varsity. Talk about those early days.
Well, in 1976, when I came to Walsh, we didn't really have sports, and they started volleyball as a club sport. We started out with just, hey, anybody want to play volleyball? And we actually had girls that came out that had played sports, had played volleyball in high school, so we had, a decent start. There were 3 from my high school that came out for the team. We played, we played for a couple of years until we, became the varsity sport, and it was really neat to see it grow, to see people actually coming in, freshmen coming in as I was a junior that actually came to play volleyball.
And you were lucky, talking about your high school days before, when we talked before the interview, that your high school had women's athletics in those days.
Yeah, a lot of the schools didn't, so we had a hard time finding schools to play. We were a very small school, Newark Catholic High School, just a little school, but we had a very strong athletic background at our school, mostly football, but volleyball really picked up. We played volleyball, basketball, and we had track for women, and in volleyball, we had an undefeated season every single year, 64 straight games with no losses, but we never got a state championship because they didn't have those back then. So it was neat to see girls' sports grow from something like that all the way through.
How'd you balance the academics and the athletics at the early years here?
It was easy for me because volleyball, I was used to playing 3 sports in high school, so I was used to that, and I was used to maintaining my grades. I came on an academic full ride scholarship, so I knew I had to keep the grades up. My parents were a little worried about that to start with, but I also did work study, so from 6 to midnight, 3 days a week, I was locked in the switchboard room, doing the old switchboard like they did, and so I had plenty of time to study then, so I kept my grades up and graduated with a 4.0.
How did Walsh accept you athletically? How did they accept women's athletics campus-wide? Maybe how did men's athletics think about women's athletics at Walsh?
It wasn't a problem, really. It wasn't taken seriously when we were a club sport, but once we became a varsity sport, student body started coming to games, cheering us on. It was fun. We had a couple of times when the men's basketball team would rather have had the gym, since we only had one gym back then. They would rather have been in there doing an open gym and doing shooting rather than having to work around our schedule. But everybody seemed to work well with it. We were a very small school back then, and everybody was supportive.
And you did help make that transition from a club sport to varsity, which is just an amazing thing.
It was fun because we didn't know we were club sport, varsity sport. We were just out there. We were playing volleyball. We played teams all over. We played Akron U. I mean, you look at the size of Akron U and the size of Walsh, and we were very competitive. We didn't have a great win-loss record the first few years, but we were competitive, and we were playing some tough schools.
Your early coaches, Barb Jostin first, Missy Long, how'd they influence you?
Barb Jostin, she grew with the team because I don't think she was a real volleyball person. She was a phys ed teacher, and she grew with the team. We really worked together to set the team up, and then when Missy Long came in, that really gave a big boost, a big jump in the skill level that I saw with what we were doing because she knew the sport and she could really help us grow.
You mentioned one thing I think needs to be talked about a little bit more. The first Walsh female with a 4.0. That's something.
It was a neat experience, it wasn't something that I came in saying, oh, I'm going to be a 4.0 person, but it happened. I had strong academic background when I came in, and Walsh really helped me, and it helped me get a good job when I came right out, and it's helped me all along. I mean, the years that I spent here were just amazing years for me. Met my husband here. A lot of my close friends, we were all Walsh people. We were actually in church this past week as we go to the Basilica of St. John, downtown Canton, and we were sitting there, and it was like, oh, there's a Walsh grad, and there's a Walsh grad, and there were 10% of the church in front of us was Walsh grads. So it was so neat to see people staying in the area and working.
Talk about the job now. You're now Judge Rosie Hall. Talk
Yes.
about what you do.
I'm a judge of Common Pleas Court, Domestic Relations Division, but we do juvenile also, so it's divorces, dissolutions, juvenile delinquents, custody cases, abused children. It's a very stressful court. It's family-oriented, and we understand that we have to get a lot of services in for these families, so it's not just coming in and trying to do something. We're working with families, so we have to have a good vent for services for these people. And I've been in family court for 20 years as an attorney, and then as magistrate, and now judge. And I love my job.
How did all the work as a student athlete help you prepare for your job today?
Well, as a student athlete, first of all, you're here for academics. That's your first goal. And you want to play sports, so you know you have to get good time management skills. And I developed those in my 4 years here. I did work study. I worked outside of school. I worked for a CPA firm on my days where I didn't have classes, and played sports, and it all worked out. It helped me. I went down the road. I worked at Republic Steel and GE Capital, and while I was working during the day, at night I was at law school. 5 days a week, working, 4 nights a week at law school, plus I had children. And the balancing really helped, and it just kind of got a little tougher because once you add kids to the mix, but I think I was well prepared all the way around coming from Walsh.
Watching the boom of athletics on the female side, do you ever sit back and think, gosh, I wish I could have came along 15 years later?
I know. Well, I keep thinking I should have eligibility still here. Can I come back? I told Coach McCallion I would have loved to have had track when I was here. I ran track. I was a miler in high school, and I loved. That was my first sport that I loved, and I wish we would have had it. But now I look back and see all these sports available for girls, lacrosse and soccer, things that we didn't even know about. I mean, I still don't know the rules of lacrosse, but different things. And my daughters have benefited from that. I had one daughter who played rugby at WVU, so it just really neat seeing the girls, coming forth in every sport.
Rosie, thanks for taking time once again. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
I'm Jim Clark. That's Judge Rosie Hall.